I already love same-day delivery with Shipt, but it's so much better since I signed up for Target's Circle 360. Why? Because I no longer pay price markups from the majority of stores through Shipt. Only a handful of alcohol retailers and items don't count. That means no markups on groceries, pet food, even home goods and makeup. So to recap, I have more time to catch up on life while someone shops for me, and I spend less. It's a win-win. Order now at shipt.com/360. Terms apply.
This podcast is brought to you by TeamTrade, a digital solution that helps you hire, optimize, and retain employees. Using psychometric assessments to identify more than 100 professional mindset traits, it gives instant reports you can use to build high-performing teams. Get 2 free profiles today, no commitment, no credit card required, at teamtrait.com. TeamTrait.com. Welcome to the Manage Smarter podcast with hosts C. Lee Smith and Audrey Strong. We're glad you're here for discussions on new ways to manage smarter, hire, develop, and retain talent, improve results, and propel team performance to new heights. This is the Manage Smarter podcast.
I think you all know, those dedicated listeners of the show, that, there are literally thousands of scenarios that could be labeled as crisis in running your business, right, Lee?
Some days it just all goes to hell. I mean, it's like no matter your best effort and everything like that, there are things that are out of your control that just seem to rear their ugly head at the worst possible moment. And it's not so much you can't control that, but you can control how you react to it. And that's what we're here to talk about today.
We are very lucky to have today's guest. Welcome to Manage Smarter, everyone. My name is Audrey Strong. I'm the Senior Vice President of Communications here at Sales Fuel.
And I'm C. Lee Smith. I am the CEO and founder of Sales Fuel.
All right. So Kon Apostolopoulos, or Coach Kon, as he's known, is the founder and CEO of Fresh Biz Solutions. It's a human capital management consulting group that provides performance improvement and training solutions to help organizations develop people, improve results, who doesn't love that, and benefit from a comprehensive talent management strategy. He's also the author of a best-selling book called The Engagement Blueprint, Building a Culture of Commitment and Performance. And when he's not working with business leader, Coach Kon gives back to the community by developing young soccer players in local, state, and Olympic development programs. And after all, sports, what a great way to teach important life skills. And that teaches resiliency. You got to get up and keep going. And obviously, Kon, welcome. One of your expertise is helping business leaders navigate difficult crisis in business. And so I can't wait to hear some tips from you. Thanks for coming to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Audrey. Lee, thank you for having me as well. It's a pleasure to join you today. I am a fan of the show, and I love listening to you guys and the value that you bring to your listeners. So I am excited to be part of this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kon. It's like, and obviously with a name like Apostolopoulos, obviously you're Greek, and also it took, we practiced all morning to learn how to say Apostolopoulos. So, but before we get into the nuts and bolts of business management leadership, I'm really kind of curious. Who's your favorite soccer club, football club?
Well, I am outside of my own, in my country, where I'm a big Olympiacos fan, which is the perennial thing. That's that you are born into your sports team and to your politics in Greece. That's part of the heritage that we carry. But as far as the international stage, I'm a big Liverpool fan, Liverpool FC, because it is the city of Liverpool is very reminiscent of the city that I grew up. It's a big port town, about the same size in Greece, with the same kind of blue collar workers and a passion for the things that matter to us. And the motto of "You will never walk alone" just resonates with me.
That's a good answer. And I mean, Lee is a big Columbus Crew fan. He's in Columbus, Ohio.
There you go.
What cup did they just win?
They won the Leagues Cup and they won MLS Cup last year, and looking forward to trying to do it again this year. So, we host Messi tomorrow night. So if you're listening to the show, you'll know when it was recorded because you can look it up and see. But it's like, I'm excited to actually get to see him in person too. So it'll be fun. Hopefully they lose.
I'm excited about some of the good work that's happening here locally with us, with the Colorado Rapids. I actually coached in their youth program. So a lot of the work that I've done is with the elite youth that are coming up through the ranks, and mostly on the girls' side, which don't always have the same sort of outlet for their professional careers from that. But nonetheless, I love working with the young ladies and seeing them grow and mature and become such amazing leaders in their own right.
And I want to I want to get to business here in a second, but I just got to say, women's soccer, they're ruthless. I mean, they go at it really, really hard, and fun to watch.
Yeah, there's no flopping around with the girls.
No.
When they hit you, you feel it.
Yeah.
If you're flying into Denver, everybody, that's where Kon's located. So look them up, take them to lunch, maybe become a client. There we go. All right, done and done. So my first question is, do you have like a top 3 most common crisis that you're contacted about from leaders among all your clients? Is there a pattern of what we're all collectively experiencing?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because normally people don't reach out to us until things get really bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, until the defecation hits the ventilation, they don't pick up the phone and call. And so it's really one of those situations where things have really gone south. And they've tried things, they've tried to solve it on their own, they've tried to do things internally, but they realize at times that they have to reach out. A big part of that is that you can't solve problems with the same mindset that created it. And that's a saying from Einstein that really resonates with me, because sometimes you need that outside perspective, that specialist to come in and offer you some insights or ask the dumb questions that you just take for granted. And that helps a lot. But the crisis that we deal with, I mean, I got into this kind of talent management, engagement, change management piece, not because I want to work with life or death situations, but it feels that way a lot of times to the people that I work with, to the owners and to the teams. It does feel very serious. So overall, things are going bad. For example, in their people space, right now you look at the announcements that are happening from Amazon and previously from Goldman Sachs, from Jamie Dimon, everybody back in the office, and all of a sudden all hell is breaking loose. And so you have these decisions that are made unilaterally by senior leadership that seem poorly timed, out of place, and all of a sudden there is riots in the streets within their people. That's the kind of crisis a lot of times that I'm asked to come in and look at it from a cultural perspective, from a communication perspective internally within the organization. Where are things breaking down? If we need to go into a new direction, for example, another crisis could be, how are we dealing with this? Do we have the right people on the right seat on the bus going in the right direction, or are we all over the place? There is nothing worse than having a well-crafted plan that's not worth the paper that it's written on, because you don't have the people in place to execute them. These are the kind of things. Yeah, exactly. and that's the thing. You look at it and say, okay, well, the fear that strikes in the hearts of senior leaders when they don't know that they can go to bat, they can go to market, knowing that they're going to be able to execute. I mean, you guys see it all the time. Part of your services is making sure that people can execute. Mm-hmm. And when senior leaders don't feel they have that confidence, it really hamstrings their ability and their confidence to move forward. So these are some of the things that I get called in to help solve. Or, we have a crisis of succession planning. We are looking at transitioning our senior leadership team. I mean, right now I'm working with 2, and actually a 3rd recently, company that are approaching me for their succession planning for their CEOs, and realizing that they're behind the gun. Now, I grew up in a situation professionally in an environment with a company that had 100,000 employees spread over 100 countries. It was part of the Fortune 100 group. And when you don't have a succession plan, that impacts your stock significantly. Investors want to know that there is a plan, that there is business continuity, that there is that kind of a situation where they know they're not at risk. Well, that still applies to smaller companies, to medium-sized companies, to privately held companies, even to mom and pops. Everybody needs to have a plan from that, and everybody needs to have the confidence that they have the right pieces in place to execute that plan.
So much of it, there's a couple thoughts that came to mind. I mean, one, having gone through my share of crises, and some of them self-inflicted, but some are not, is that you don't know if you're going to get through to the other side, and you don't know what it's going to look like when you get through to the other side. And then once you get through it or something like that, or you've had some time away from it or whatever, you kind of feel like, okay, I got through that. I can get through the next one, and then the next one's worse. It's like, and I remember when I was going through one a few years ago, whatever, it's like, I mean, I basically took Winston Churchill's quote, if you're going through hell, keep going. And, posted that, posted it on a Post-it note, on my computer monitor. And, So how do you deal with the leadership or something like that when, they're so deep in the muck and everything like that, that they're having difficulty seeing the vision about what it looks like once they get through it?
Well, here's the interesting piece, because like you said, when we're dealing with crisis, there is a roadmap. There is a roadmap to get out of that. And that's part of what we captured in my first book, 7 Keys to Navigating a Crisis, because it was all about really how do we deal with unexpected change. And crisis can take many forms, as you know, Lee. There are personal crises, there are professional crises, there's never a shortage of them. And what seems like a day-to-day kind of occurrence to some people it's a much bigger deal for others. And so we have to learn how to apply those skills. That Winston Churchill quote that you mentioned truly illustrates the power of resilience. And resilience is getting to that other side and knowing that you can do that. Those of us that have been around for a moment or two realize that, even this last crisis that was huge, it wasn't the first one that we've had. I mean, a few years earlier, we had, more crises that were going on. In 2008, we had, the Great Recession. 2005, we had major catastrophes in the South with Katrina. Now we're seeing the same sort of thing with this Hurricane Helene. I mean, before that, we had 9/11. There's never a shortage of crises that impact us on a personal level and a professional level. So the question is, how do we do this? How do we overcome this? So the roadmap is there. First of all, it's understanding that crisis, in my native tongue in Greek, the word crisis, krisi, is represented as a test by the gods. It's an unexpected test that we are put through, a challenge that we must overcome as part of our growth, as part of our opportunity to move forward. And in the Chinese concept of crisis, there is opportunity on the other side of that. It's chaos and opportunity. And so on the other side of all of these things, there is opportunity if we can only look for it and find it. Think about this. Before 2008, we didn't have Airbnb or Uber or any of those things. Before the latest crisis that we had, the pandemic and everything, wouldn't you have liked to have Zoom stock? So there are opportunities on the other side of crisis when we can find those things. We just have to be prepared. So I'd love to be able to identify 2 or 3 things that I can take from that roadmap that I want people to think about.
Okay.
First of all, when a crisis hits, it's important to put on your mask first, like they tell us when we get on a flight. If you're not in a good place, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you are not on solid ground, how are you going to pick anybody else up? How are you going to care for somebody else or your team if you are not in a good place? So self-care is essential. It's not selfish. And along with that, the ability to be mindful, to reflect, to be aware of what's happening around us and the emotions that people are experiencing on our team, and be empathetic to that. That's important. Flexibility comes into play here, Lee. I mean, when I coach executives, a lot of times I ask them a very simple question. I said, in your role, the way that you envision yourselves, how do you see yourself? Do you relate more with the giant oak tree, or do you relate more to a palm tree? And inevitably, most of these executives will relate to the oak tree. Big, constant, strong, have major cover over things. I mean, branches everywhere. I mean, this big, beautiful thing. But they don't understand that at a time of crisis and a storm, the same things that make the oak tree strong make them vulnerable, because that inflexibility, that inability to adapt and flex is part of their downfall. Because when the winds are so strong and the rains come down, the branches break, the tree itself, if it's saturated, the ground is saturated enough with water, it can get upturned. Whereas for anybody that's lived in a coastal area where there are palm trees, you realize that even in the worst of storms, the palm tree may almost tip down to the ground, the leaves may be blown away, but the roots dig deeper, and it comes back up after the storm. It has that ability to regenerate and reinvent itself. So those are some of the early things that I look at when we deal with crisis.
One question
I think
have is,
identifying your best non-traditional thinker is pretty much is a good idea. And Audrey, of course, has a story of her trying to get from Dallas to LA. I mean, where like it took some non-traditional thinking basically to get her there in a timely manner, right, Audrey?
Yeah. One question I have is small businesses can pivot in a crisis and they can do an issues management session to keep the genie in the bottle before they get a full-blown crisis. What happens when you're in a larger organization and now all of a sudden, all right, let's talk about the people who don't want to go back to the office. Now you've got legal involved, HR involved, operations involved. What's your recommendation for leaders that in the audience that are in a larger, more complex organization to solving a crisis when you got all these other departments involved?
The biggest challenge that we face in situations like that is an area that's one of your superpowers, Audrey. It's communication. It's opening up those channels of communication. It's how do we first and foremost engage people and help them understand why we're looking at that essential. I've been involved in a lot of these transformational pieces with workers working remotely or working from the office for many, many years. I was part of a transformational task force in my company back in the early 2000s in call centers when we were looking at the opportunity to create remote agents. When you look at the situation like that, the financial benefits to a company have always been there. But what was lacking, the things that we always butt up against, first of all, technology to make sure that we could replicate the situation that you have in a centralized point. And the second and most important thing, most critical thing is trust from management. Technology has caught up with us. So with the latest crisis that we found ourselves, people were able to work remotely and continue to work remotely. I have clients all over the world. I can work from anywhere. My business has become location agnostic. And so I'm portable to be able to work anywhere. I can still deliver that value. But the trust is still an issue. Leadership gave that permission for people to work remotely begrudgingly because they didn't have a choice. But what was proven from that is that people can do the job. At least 2/3 of the working population has jobs that can be done remotely. Some cannot. It's just the reality of that. You cannot do certain things remotely or virtually. So for those that can, it's a very hard sell to say all of a sudden, now that you don't like it, I have to come back to work. So opening up the channels of communication and making sure that people understand the reasoning why this is important is a good starting point. There are benefits to remote work, yes, but there are also benefits to working together. You cannot replicate everything. The body language, those moments, it's very hard to replicate those when we are learning from each other, when we are engaging with each other. That 5 minutes that you and I walked out of one meeting and we're headed to the break room to get that cup of coffee is the opportunity for us to connect as human beings. That's very hard to replicate in a virtual environment. When I ask you, how's the family? How's things going? Hey, how was that weekend? I know you got away. Did you get the chance to relax? Or me looking over your shoulder as you're processing something. That's very hard to do. It takes very purposeful endeavor to be able to do that virtually. Not impossible, but very hard to do. The problem is that we have a whole army of managers that their entire existence, their purpose in life is to be able to oversee and monitor and manage things. And the only way that they've taught to do that is to do that in person. If I can't see the whites of your eyes, I don't trust that you're working. And they've been conditioned through the industrial ages to think widgets, productivity, outputs. How many hours are you behind that keyboard? How many things did you produce? That's how they measure things. It's impossible for them to measure productivity as in how many emails did you answer or how many do that. It's very hard to do that. The modern manager needs to embrace the leadership paradox, Audrey. They need to come back and look at things and say, okay, first of all, I need to have empathy because of people's circumstances and how we've set them up. But at the same time, I need to set up tough love and boundaries in order for them to avoid burning out, but also being able to get the results that I need from them. They need to embrace the concept of high tech, high touch. Use the technology that we have availability for us right now to increase the human touch points, recreate those moments whenever they need. And start, for crying out loud, start managing outcomes instead of outputs. I don't care about how many widgets you process. Did we get the job done? The client doesn't care about our effort. They care about our results. And so being able to balance those things and embrace that paradox, which is two seemingly opposite points that we have to synthesize in the modern leadership methodologies that we need to teach.
The Olympics doesn't give gold medals for it. Well, I tried.
Yeah. I mean, you get a participant that you can say you're an Olympian, but you're not going to get the medal for it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm curious, is people's fear, speaking of the employees, in a workplace, is people's fear or resistance to AI becoming a crisis?
In the sense that many people, including myself, that I'm still learning about it. I'm still trying to understand it.
Yeah.
So it's inevitable that people will look at this and they'll think Terminator. They think that their very livelihoods are in danger. And so they think the machines are taking over. And in some cases, there are activities that the machines will take over. That's the whole purpose of automation. We've been doing that in factories for years. I mean, you go to any auto plant and the number of workers that are there are far fewer than there used to be, because you know what? The machines do it better, faster, cheaper. Where people need to focus is on their human traits, the things that cannot be replicated by a machine. Our humanity is what's going to separate us. And that's the important thing. Ethics are very hard for an AI to understand. Intuition is very hard for an AI to understand. Original creativity is very hard for AI to capture. AI is great at really looking at things and aggregating at a very fast pace and bringing things in. And once you feed the scenarios, you have to teach it, just like anything else. You have to teach it a certain behavior and a response. And then it becomes a very predictable response. With some adaptations, AI is far exceeding my understanding of it right now. So there's things that it's teaching itself to do. But again, this is scenario planning. What it can't do is a lot of the original things, the out of ether creativity that we can do as human beings for right now.
So is management and leadership having that conversation, just like you just did right now? Mm-hmm. Well, is that enough to overcome people's fear of AI? I mean, certainly it helps. Is there something more they could do?
Well, there's elements of that. The familiarity will break down some of these things. I mean, fear. What do we fear? We fear the unknown. We fear the ramifications of that. But on the other side of fear, as I've been writing lately in a lot of my articles and my content, is trust. We have to build trust. If you want people to not react poorly to AI or anything else that you're putting forward, you got to build trust. If things are delivered in a spirit of mutual respect and trust, there's opportunity, there's a foundation for us to have a conversation. But senior leadership needs to stop thinking that they have to mandate everything or they have to come up with all the answers. When you have such a wealth of information at your fingertips, you're going to go out and use AI to go and aggregate information from the broader internet, but yet you won't ask your knowledge pool of workers about how to solve a problem when they know it best. I mean, the same reasoning that you would put to ask a query of an AI product or an AI agent, you need to go out and ask your people the same thing. How can we make this viable for you guys and for us? How can we make this a win-win situation? That's what it is. I mean, I've taken great pains right now in ownership. I want to start a movement. I've already started it with writing my latest book, The Engagement Blueprint. And that movement is about transforming workplaces for the benefit of the employers and the employee. And when you can make that happen and you can create those win-win situations where workplace well-being becomes your competitive advantage, when you can light the fire in your people without burning them out, that is what leaders should be striving for. Engage them, have them be part of the solution, not make them a problem that they have to solve.
freshbizsolutions.com is your website, and the solution word being in the company name is perfect. And I don't want to leave the audience hanging. Yes, Lee, I am a linear thinker. Lee is a non-traditional brain. And I was trying to go from Dallas to LA, and I'm in the Austin airport. It's taken 17 hours. I can't get to LA. And I'm almost crying. He says to me, get out the corporate card, buy a ticket one way on another airline and fly to LA. It didn't occur to me to change airlines. Okay. Just didn't, so I was being the oak and he's the palm tree. So there it is.
There you go.
I was technically in a crisis because I had an event. I was supposed to be working with him early the next morning. Mm-hmm. So.
And you're dreading that. But part of that is also, I mean, he's thinking about it.
In more ways than one.
But think about it this way. Even Lee's non-traditional thinking is based on a number of scenarios that he's dealt with in other situations. I mean, Fresh Biz was founded on the concept that good ideas from one area, one field, can be applied to others when they are rethought through and going through that. I've talked to friends that come from the improv space. There is nothing more disciplined than improv. It's a million different scenarios that you run through your hair. If this person says this, then I'm going to say this. If this is the kind of thing that I see, I'm going to do that. That's the power of being able to create that. That's the experience that you're buying a lot of times when people come to you or they come to me. They want to know that even if you haven't dealt with this exact situation, you have enough experience to recognize the signs, and you can navigate, as we call them in the book. You can become a navigator to help me go through this. You have the understanding and you have the experience. Those are the elements I'm looking for in my guide and my navigator.
I was I need to save the company money. And he was the improv. What's the number one first rule of improv? Yes. And
very
get
good.
on it. Go to Delta.
Very good. Very good.
This has been great. Oh, go ahead. Say what, Kon? What were you going to say?
No. I mean, in trying to save the company a few dollars from that piece, you potentially could upset a client that could cost you a lot more.
Yeah. Well, it was a trade show. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, you were looking for an excuse not to be Lee. The truth comes out. The truth comes out.
There it is. All right.
Curses foiled again.
Kon, this has been a pleasure. Thank you, sir. Thanks for all the great tips.
Thank you. My pleasure, you guys.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information at salesfuel.com.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.